What if the most shocking Titanic stories were not about the iceberg, but about the people? These rare photos expose the scandals, secrets, and forbidden loves that sailed on the ship of dreams. The truth is far more scandalous than you can imagine. They look like ordinary photographs. People smiling on a ship, couples leaning on polished railings, children clutching their parents' hands. Yet behind every frozen smile lies a truth too chilling to ignore. These are not just snapshots of a voyage, they are the final fragments of lives stolen by one of history's most haunting disasters: the sinking of the Titanic. In 1912, the Titanic was celebrated as a floating palace, a glittering dream of safety and luxury. But within days, that dream shattered into screams, echoing across the icy Atlantic night. The same passengers who laughed at dinner, who posed proudly for portraits, would soon face a darkness they never imagined. What you're about to see are 50 hidden Titanic passenger photos. Images they never wanted the world to see, glimpses of glamour, secrets, and final moments. Let's begin with the forbidden smiles, captured before tragedy struck. At first glance, the Titanic seemed less like a ship and more like a royal ballroom floating on the sea. For the wealthy elite, it was a stage to display their fortune, their fashion, and their flawless composure. Rare photographs show men in crisp suits and women draped in silks and diamonds, sipping tea on polished decks as if the world itself bowed to their presence. They believed they were untouchable, safeguarded by the unsinkable legend. Look closely at those smiles. John Jacob Astor IV, one of the richest men alive, strolling beside his much younger bride. Benjamin Guggenheim in tailored elegance, exuding effortless power. Margaret Molly Brown, the socialite, whose spirit would later earn her the name Unsinkable. These images capture a confidence so complete, it feels almost eerie now. Every photograph brims with illusion. The illusion that the ocean was harmless, that wealth could defy nature, that a steel giant could never fail. Passengers clinked champagne glasses, their laughter echoing across grand dining halls. They basked in chandeliers and music, utterly unaware that an iceberg lay waiting in the dark. These snapshots of glamour, once meant to inspire envy, now carry a chilling undertone. They remind us how fragile human certainty can be, how quickly joy transforms into terror. For while first-class passengers reveled in luxury, another group of passengers carried quieter dreams, dreams that history almost forgot. Beneath the glittering chandeliers and velvet-carpeted staircases, another world existed on the Titanic. Far from the polished decks of first class, the third-class passengers, immigrants, laborers, families seeking a better life, were tucked away in cramped quarters deep within the ship. Their faces, rarely photographed, tell stories even more powerful than the aristocrats above. In faded images, we see mothers clutching infants, young men with hopeful eyes, and families gathered together with nothing but small trunks and heavy dreams. For them, the Titanic was not a symbol of wealth, but of possibility. America promised freedom, land and work, dreams strong enough to endure the cold metal confines of steerage. Yet these same photos carry a haunting weight. Nearly 3/4 of third-class passengers would never reach that dream. Their lack of access to lifeboats sealed their fate before they even boarded. These smiles, these glimmers of hope, became their last recorded moment. Unlike the first-class portraits polished for newspapers, these images feel raw, intimate, and fragile. They are windows into lives cut short not by choice, but by circumstance. While luxury passengers toasted champagne, third-class families huddled below, believing the same lie that the Titanic could not fail them. Their faces remind us of the forgotten majority, those whose names history barely whispered. Each photo is a final testament, not of riches or power, but of resilience, sacrifice, and the universal human dream of a better tomorrow. The Titanic was more than a ship, it was a floating stage where secrets traveled disguised as elegant. For behind the polite smiles and stiff portraits, whispers of scandal clung to many of the passengers captured on film. One photo shows a refined gentleman, smiling as though nothing could touch him. Yet behind that smile was a truth. He was not traveling with his wife, but with his mistress. The Titanic, with its private suites, and discreet corridors became a haven for forbidden romances. These images, posed, composed, and polished, hid the reality of broken vows and stolen affections. There were others fleeing disgrace, bankers hiding debts, aristocrats masking ruined fortunes, men and women reinventing themselves under false names. In photographs they appear proud and composed, but their stories reveal desperation dressed in pearls and tuxedos. To the world these were images of confidence. In truth, many were portraits of escape. Some photos capture passengers whose true identities remain shrouded in mystery. Individuals who boarded under aliases, their motives lost forever beneath the sea. Were they running from the law, escaping scandal, seeking a second life across the Atlantic? Each frozen expression invites speculation, reminding us that the Titanic was not merely a vessel of luxury, but a ship of secrets. These seemingly innocent portraits, once meant for family albums or society columns, now carry an air of forbidden revelation. Every glance, every smile, may conceal a story the public was never meant to know. Yet scandal was only a shadow of what awaited. For the most shocking images of all were not tied to hidden affairs or secret lives. They were tied to the night when steel met ice, and illusion gave way to catastrophe. On April 14, 1912, the Titanic sailed into its final night. Photographs taken just hours before the collision show an atmosphere of calm elegance. Passengers strolled the decks wrapped in coats, smiling against the chill Atlantic air. Musicians tuned their instruments for another evening of waltzes, while laughter drifted from the dining hall. To every soul aboard it was another night in paradise. To us, looking back, those images feel like the last quiet heartbeat before disaster. The iceberg struck just before midnight. Survivors would later describe a shuddering jolt like a hand dragging across the ship's underbelly. Yet in photos of that very day, no trace of fear can be seen, just the illusion that time itself was endless. Couples posed for snapshots, friends leaned casually on the rail, their smiles untouched by the knowledge of what awaited them in the darkness. When the collision came, confusion quickly turned to chaos. Lights flickered, voices rose, and lifeboats were lowered into the freezing night. The band played on, captured in memory though never in film, their music echoing against the pen. Those who had posed so confidently in photographs mere hours earlier now faced a choice between the icy sea and dwindling space in the lifeboats. Every surviving image of that evening is infused with dread when viewed today. A child clinging to her father's hand, a group of men laughing with cigars, each one unaware that the very ocean around them was sharpening its blade. These photos remind us that history's most terrifying moments often arrive silently, disguised as ordinary life. And when the calm finally shattered, when panic engulfed the decks, only some would find refuge. Their faces captured forever in photos of survival tell a story as chilling as the Atlantic itself. Amid the chaos, a small fraction of passengers found themselves pulled into lifeboats, drifting away from the glowing silhouette of the Titanic as it sank into darkness. Photographs of these survivors, taken in the days that followed, reveal expressions unlike any others, faces etched with shock, disbelief, and quiet sorrow. Wrapped in heavy blankets, women and children stare blankly into the camera. Their eyes tell stories words cannot capture: the relief of escape, the terror of what they had seen, and the unshakable guilt of survival. Behind them, the Atlantic had swallowed husbands, fathers, brothers, and friends. Each rescued passenger became a living reminder of the thousands left behind. Among them was Margaret Molly Brown, later hailed as the unsinkable. But beyond the famous names were countless forgotten survivors, ordinary mothers clutching babies, young crewmen trembling in silence, children too young to understand why their fathers never returned. These photographs are not triumphant portraits. They are heavy with grief, haunted by absence. Each image forces us to ask, what does survival cost when survival means watching so many others vanish into the sea? And for those left with only final portraits, the story grows even more haunting. Long before the iceberg, long before panic and screams, many Titanic passengers posed for photographs that would unknowingly become their last. These images, viewed today, carry an unbearable weight. A smiling couple framed in soft studio light, children dressed in their finest clothes, staring wide-eyed at the camera. Groups of friends gathered on deck, relaxed and carefree. To them, these were simple moments, souvenirs of a grand voyage. To us, they are final portraits, frozen echoes of lives about to be lost. Consider the haunting image of the Allison family, proud parents with their children, radiant with hope for a new future. Within days, most of them would vanish into the icy Atlantic, leaving only the photograph as proof they had once existed. Or the young newlyweds whose smiles spoke of a lifetime ahead, smiles cut short by the cruel night of April 14. Even anonymous faces carry the same chilling resonance. An immigrant child with a hopeful gaze, a group of young men laughing as if the world could never harm them. Each image is transformed by hindsight. Every joyful expression becomes a silent farewell. These portraits were never meant to be relics of tragedy. They were meant for family albums, for mantles, for memories of a bright journey. Instead, they became tombstones in paper form, reminders of how swiftly fate can strike. And as these final smiles fade into history, another set of images emerges, photos so controversial, so disturbing, that authorities once tried to suppress them. Not every photograph from the Titanic story was meant for public eyes. Some were hidden away, suppressed, or debated for decades. They reveal a darker, more unsettling side of the disaster, images that authorities and families once wished would disappear. Among them are grainy shots, said to capture lifeboats, drifting in the vast emptiness of the Atlantic. Tiny figures huddled together under the night sky, their faces blurred by distance. Were these real survivors, or misidentified vessels? The debate continues, but the haunting aura of abandonment lingers in each frame. Even more disturbing are photographs claimed to show bodies recovered from the icy waters. Some historians argue they are authentic. Others insist they are later fabrication. What cannot be denied is the silence surrounding them. Why would such records be buried, unless the truth was too painful to confront? There are also images of the temporary morgues, rows of coffins lined on shore, shrouded in secrecy. Newspapers of the time often chose not to publish them, protecting public sensibilities while hiding the sheer scale of loss. These controversial images stand apart from the elegant portraits and smiling faces. They strip away the illusion of luxury and reveal the Titanic's aftermath in its most brutal form. Whether blurred by time or suppressed by choice, they force us to confront what polite society once tried to erase. Yet even amid horror, the human spirit endured, and the next photos show that resilience etched forever in history. In the shadow of unimaginable loss, photographs taken after the disaster reveal something powerful. Resilient survivors, though broken by grief, gathered strength to step onto solid ground once more. Images of them disembarking in New York show crowds pressing forward, children clutched tightly in their mothers' arms, faces pale yet determined. Each survivor carried not just their own story, but the memory of hundreds who never returned. Communities mourned together, and photographs of memorial services capture rows of grieving families draped in black. Flowers filled churches, candles flickered, and the names of the lost echoed through solemn halls. These images speak of collective sorrow, but also of humanity's refusal to forget. In time, survivors' portraits became symbols of endurance. Their haunted eyes told of fear, but also of courage. The photographs that once marked tragedy transformed into guardians of memory, ensuring that the Titanic would never fade into myth alone. Through these images, we see not only death but the unbreakable will to honor those who perish. They remind us that even in humanity's darkest hours, remembrance becomes a form of survival. And so, as we close this journey, one final truth remains. From glittering smiles on polished decks, to haunting portraits of final farewells, these hidden Titanic photos tell a story more powerful than words alone. They are fragments of joy, ambition, secrecy, and tragedy, captured forever in frames that were never meant to outlive their subject. Together they reveal the cruel contrast of the Titanic, a vessel celebrated as invincible, undone in a single night by ice and fate. We've seen the glamour of first-class passengers, the forgotten faces of steerage, the scandals hidden behind elegant gowns, and the chilling silence of the iceberg's impact. We've lingered on the last smiles of children and newlyweds,
and glimpsed images so controversial they were nearly erased from history. Each photo is a voice from the past, whispering of dreams that ended far too soon. Yet these images also remind us why we remember. They are not just evidence of disaster, but testaments to human resilience, memory, and the fragile beauty of life itself. To look at them is to honor those who sailed, those who perished, and those who endured. If these forbidden images moved you, share their story, keep their memory alive. And if you want to uncover more hidden photos and untold moments history tried to keep in the shadows, subscribe for the next journey, because history is never silent. It waits for us to listen.